Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And thank you so much to our incredible, distinguished panel. We are so grateful that you guys made the effort to be here today. So thank you for being here. I know we want to jump right into questions immediately, but I'll take a moment to introduce all of you. We are really so grateful to have you here today. So I'll start. On my left, we have Ambassador Alfredo Ferrero, Ambassador of Peru to the United States. He is a well-known Peruvian attorney and politician. He specialized in commercial and corporate law, trade, arbitration, and negotiations. He has a very impressive and long curriculum, but he has served as Minister of Foreign Trade and Tourism, Vice Minister of International Trade Negotiations, and he has had a lot of other important roles as well in the private sector, including being a member of the board of directors of several companies in a variety of different sectors. The ambassador has had a very accomplished career, and he spent some time teaching at many prestigious universities. He was also a columnist of a Peruvian newspaper for more than 17 years. And he's written articles for several newspapers and magazines, and he even authored a book titled Historias de un Desafío, Histories of a Challenge, which narrates the efforts to negotiate and achieve the signing of the free trade agreement with the US. Thank you so much for being here, Ambassador. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm glad to be here with you.
Thank you. And then we also have Ambassador Daniel Garcia Peña Jaramillo. Thank you for being here, Ambassador. He is the Ambassador of Colombia to the United States. And he is a distinguished Colombian historian and academic with a lot of experience in peace building, international relations, and also journalism. He's the son of a Colombian diplomat, and he spent his childhood and adolescence in the United States. After returning to Colombia, he also taught for many years in the country's most prestigious universities, and he held numerous positions that have really contributed significantly to Colombia's foreign policy. He has also worn many different hats, having also served as the Consul General of Colombia in Paris and as High Commissioner for Peace at the Presidency of the Republic of Colombia. Thank you for being here, Ambassador. And
Good to be
here. Last but not least, we have Emmanuel Lyons del Valle. He is the Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of Panama here in the United States. In this capacity, he plays a very important role in strengthening the bilateral relationship between Panama and the United States. And he also advances strategic cooperation in trade, technology, and investment. He has had more than a decade of leadership experience at the intersection of technology and commerce and policy, and he served as general manager of e-Business Distribution Panama, as well as director in Panama's Chamber of Commerce. Again, thank you all so much for being here. It's a pleasure being here and sharing the stage with all of you, and just very excited to pick your brains and learn a little bit more about what it's like to be an ambassador here in the United States. So, Ambassador Garcia Peña, I'll start with you, just because I've seen you a lot recently, so I'll pick on you first. And I want to start with kind of a fun question that I think a lot of us ask ourselves. But what does a typical week representing your nation in Washington, D.C. look like?
There's no such thing as a typical week in Washington, especially recently. No, I'm just kidding. We have a meeting every Monday with my staff, the persons that are in charge of the different topics that we deal with. So it's great to be able to sit down and talk about the drugs and trade and all the different aspects that we deal with. This is where we do our planning, where we talk about the recent developments. I also have meetings, not every week, but very frequently, depends on the situation with our military attachés. We have a very important part of the bilateral relations between our two countries have to do with the military and the police. And we, during the week, it depends on if with Congress in or Congress is out, spend a lot of time in Congress. We obviously meet with our counterparts at the State Department, at the War Department, at the Homeland Security. And we do a lot of work with think tanks like America First and others, because we know that in this town, what decision makers are there. The ones that are they're in charge refer to those that are following Colombia, following the issues that we deal with. So, and Ana here, who accompanies me, helps me to reach out to the different think tanks and universities. And lastly, we also have a lot of work that involves working with our consulates. We have 12 consulates in the United States. Now with migration, immigration, and all these issues that have to do with the Colombian population, we spend a lot of time. In fact, I visit at least once a year each of our consulates and talk with the Colombian community. And even though we in the embassies, our role is very different from the consulates, we work very close with them because of the importance that those issues have in our agenda with the United States.
That's very fascinating, and you're absolutely right. I stand corrected. There is probably no such thing as an average week for you guys in Washington, D.C. I think not.
It makes it more exciting, though, doesn't it?
Exactly.
I think Alfredo and Manuel would agree with that.
Fair. Never
Absolutely.
a dull day in Washington. And not just because you guys are diplomats in Washington, D.C., and because you're ambassadors, you know, in such an important bilateral relationship that so many of you have with the U.S., but especially because of the timing, right? It can't be easy being an ambassador right now with so many constant developments, right? And under the presidency of President Trump. So that was what I was going to ask you next, Ambassador Ferrero. As we have all seen, this Trump administration moves very fast and sometimes aggressively, and they communicate very quickly and very publicly, right? On Twitter, now X, a lot of declarations are made. But not just
Truth Social.
Truth, yeah, you're right. I have to get it right. But also what we've seen from the Trump administration is they also seem to be a little bit more comfortable with friction than a lot of the previous administrations. Is there anything that you can share about what it's been like to overlap with this administration?
Yeah, well, this is, for us, it's a very important embassy worldwide. I would say that the Washington Embassy of Peru, it's the main embassy of Peru everywhere. We have 17 consulates also in the United States. So we have consulates all over the place. Our population here is around 1 million people in Peruvians. And of course, we are very focused on 3 specific areas in our embassy. We have 3 areas that we share different interests. One of them is the political area, which is here today with my colleagues here with us. That's in charge of the relationship between the embassy and the Congress, the White House, and the Department of State. Very busy area in Washington. I would say that it's crucial to have good relationship with the Congress, with the State Department, and with the White House. So I would say that we've managed to be able to have very good relationship with Díaz-Balart, Jimenez, and even with the Rubio office. So I think we have done a pretty good job trying to establish long-lasting relationships, despite the fact that I also work in the last year of Biden administration, and we also have to develop relationships with both parties because that's the task of the embassy. So what I can say the difference between one of the other is that I arrived at the end of Biden at the beginning of Trump. So now we are very focused on generating investments for Peru. And that's the other area of the embassy, which is the economic area. That's a group of diplomats that try to attract investments from the United States to Peru and also promote investments from Peru to the United States. That's also a very important area. Nowadays, we are receiving more interest from Peruvians coming to the United States. For example, in certain areas that are critical for the United States and for us, like minerals. And also, we try to facilitate investment from U.S. to Peru in areas as infrastructure or investments or whatever exports. We have a trade agreement that has 15 years of signature and is very successful for both countries. That was the beginning of my, public experience with the United States. I was in charge of the negotiation of that agreement. That's why the book that you mentioned, Historia de Desafío, tells us the story about the negotiation. So trade is very, very well positioned between our 2 countries. We are the #1 agro-exporter of blueberry for the United States, for example. So economic area is also another important area of our office. And the third one, Also very important is the one related to public diplomacy that has to do with related to culture, gastronomy, which is also a main issue for us in Peru. We are very strong on that. Education, relationship with the think tanks. So these three areas are very focused on specific tasks, and we meet regularly with each of them separately or as a whole to identify what's coming ahead. Usually what I do is I plan my agenda in advance. I understand, and that's really true, as Ambassador of Colombia said, that it's difficult to be so fixed. You have to be versatile to be able to change in the moment. But generally we do that with a one-month schedule because there are a lot of things coming and we have to prepare for those situations. So I would say that this embassy, as probably for the other countries, my colleagues from Panama and Colombia, it's a very important embassy for our country. And we focus very much on investments, on political relations, and also in diplomacy. So, and that's, I would say that this is an important year for us because we are having the 200 years anniversary of the diplomatic relations between Peru and the United States.
This year?
This specific year. Which is also the 250th anniversary of the independence of the United States.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is special for us.
Special overlap. That's
That's right.
amazing. Well, thank you so much, Ambassador. That's very fascinating to hear. And I know, as all of you have probably noticed, when the Trump administration took office last year, at the beginning of last year, a lot of the focus began to shift from what the prior administrations had been focusing on. And there's been this renewed focus on what U.S. policy and strategy looks like. And it's had its eye on the Western Hemisphere. Probably for the last year, and even now that there is so much action happening in other parts of the world, the Trump administration, through a lot of its cabinet officials, our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, yes, they have had this very unique focus on Latin America. I think that comes with its advantages and disadvantages. A lot less flies under the radar. But Emmanuel, can you talk about that a little bit? I know there's been a lot of focus on the Panama Canal and what American hard power and security looks like in the hemisphere. What has that been like dealing with that?
Sure, thank you for the question. And you were mentioning Secretary Rubio. In fact, his first overseas trip as Secretary of State was to Panama. And what you described about the relationship with the Western Hemisphere is not something that we're making up. It's actually outlined in the National Security Strategy, which is a document that I highly recommend you read because it basically explains what the U.S.'s interests in the region are. So it's not something that we're making up or inventing, but rather the strategy that has been outlined by the current administration. Before I answer the question regarding the Panama Canal, I briefly want to outline the historical relationship that Panama has with the U.S. Panama is a dollarized economy. We've used the U.S. dollar since 1904. Our central government does not have the ability to print money, so we've had very low inflation and a very stable, of course, a very stable currency throughout our history, which has created a very stable environment for foreign direct investment. Speaking of foreign direct investment, 80% of the FDI stock in Panama is owned by U.S. companies. The Panama Canal, as you mentioned, our most important and significant strategic asset, 70% of all ships that go through the canal either leave or arrive at a U.S. port. So the U.S. is by far the canal's most important and significant user. In terms of air connectivity, Panama City's airport is the most transited airport in the region. Many of you have probably been there connecting flights. 90% of those who travel go from one plane to another as a connection. And a third of all passengers come or go to an airport in the U.S. It actually serves 18 different cities in the U.S., by far the most important market for our national airport. And in terms of those economic ties, it also goes to academia. I was fortunate enough to study in the U.S., as those joining me in this panel. All 8 of our last presidents, including our current president, have studied either an undergraduate or a graduate degree in a university in the U.S. So the ties are there. It's a historical relationship, and it's a relationship that through this embassy, which is by far the most important embassy of our foreign service, is nurtured every day.
That is amazing. Yeah, we know it's definitely a very interesting assignment to be assigned to the United States because it's a relationship that has so much history, especially for you guys, and I know there's a lot of pressure in that as well. Ambassador Garcia Peña, the president, our president is famous for a lot of things, but one of the things that make him, I think, especially unique is the way that he communicates, as we were talking about, communicates his policy a lot of the time directly through social media. What has been your experience, President Petro's experience with that? Is there anything that you can share about what that's been like to liaise with a president that communicates so publicly?
Well, there's some things I can share, others that I cannot, but I was more than happy to share that, it's, I, as you mentioned, taught for many years about foreign policy and the rules of international relations. And without a doubt, we're in a different moment right now. I think that this is, we can sit down and talk about if it's good, if it's bad, the pros, the cons, but it's just a matter of fact, a reality, that leaders in general communicate with their followers through social media. And even though President Petro and President Trump are on opposite ends of the ideological spectrum and have are both vocal on their opinions, there are similarities, and without a doubt, it has a lot to do with their style of using the social media. For some reason, they do it on the weekends a lot, very strange hours of the night as well. I don't know what, both of them have this certain knack for doing this, but it makes things more challenging, without a doubt. In fact, I have someone in the office whose job is to follow True Social and X to see what your president is saying, what my president is saying, back and forth. But I think it also is something that we have come to understand, which is one of the values that we share with the United States. We're both democracies. People may like or may not like President Trump's policy, but I always say to them, look, he's doing in office what he promised he was going to do, and he was elected by the American people. Same goes for Petro. You may like Petro, you may not like Petro, but Petro is doing everything that he said he was going to do when he was elected by the Colombian people. So how to deal with those personalities and those realities of communication. It's very challenging, but at the same time, we have been able to understand that when you focus on the issues that we agree on or that we have strategic alignments on, things flow. We had a meeting between the two presidents on February 3rd that, to be honest, I was quite nervous. We didn't know how that was going to turn out. But and people ask me, well, how did you guys do it? Because the playbook was very simple. Let's talk about things we can agree on and ignore the things we know we will not agree on. I said to President Petro, forget about talking about climate change. You're not going to talk President Trump in a different position. And President Trump is not going to, ever get Petro to say, drill, baby, drill. That's just not going to happen. So let's not talk about those issues. And we focus on two issues: fighting transnational criminal organizations and drug trafficking, where Colombia and the U.S. see eye to eye. These are organizations that are killing Americans, they're killing Colombians. Let's work together against this common enemy. And that specific moment, Venezuela. Regardless of what may have happened in the past, today, Colombia, like no other country in the world, because of where we are, because of our history with Venezuela, is, along with the United States, we're able to work in what I call the win-win-win situations. Venezuelans need to get their electric grid back up. Colombia has a great electric company that can do that, and the U.S. needs that to happen to be able to stabilize. So here, and I think that has a lot to do with, back to the question, that even though our presidents love the social media, and at one point both of them went overboard at insulting the other one back and forth, when they met face-to-face in the Oval Office, there was great respect. I think that President Trump respects strong leaders like President Petro, and they hit it off. At the end of the meeting, Trump said, "Gustavo, I like you." That was his, and I think that shows how two leaders that are acting responsibly, defending what they were elected to do, can sit down and say, we can agree on these specific areas, and the meeting went fabulously. And I think that shows, again, how democracies, that we're going to have differences. My president, our presidential, we have elections coming up. We're going to have a new president. I don't know who he or she will be on August 7th. You guys are going to have elections in a couple of years. There's going to be changes here, changes there, but these long-standing relationship, and I think this is something Peru and Panama for sure agree upon. This goes beyond who's sitting in our presidential office or in your White House, because we have these long-standing, in fact, it's 204 years of our relationship with the United States. This goes way beyond who happens to be in the office. So I think that both presidents, when they sat down and saw each other and understood that they can, despite the differences they have, they will continue to have, said, look, let's focus on those things where you guys and us agree. And that, I think, is the beauty of diplomacy, you know, how in the midst of the most difficult crisis is when more dialogue, when more communication, when more contact, and that personal relationship between the two presidents is so important.
And Ambassador, I think I speak for a lot of people in this room when I say you were not in a very enviable position leading up to the February 3rd meeting, but I know I commend you because you did an incredible job, and I know you had a lot of influence in shaping what that meeting was going to look like and in advising the president leading up to that. And we're glad that the meeting was such a success. So congratulations for that.
Thank you so much.
And you brought up something that I think a lot of us are curious about, right? A lot of us that have visited DC or now live in DC know that it's a very transient city. Leadership is always changing. The people that work here are always changing. So it's very difficult sometimes to build that lasting influence or to build relationships when people are constantly cycling out. And Ambassador, I want to ask you a little bit about this because Peru has managed to become a long-term partner, especially recently, of the United States, and with policy people always cycling out and leadership always changing. How do you manage to build the kind of influence that lasts beyond just a term or two?
Well, this it's a very important question, and I would like to focus something that's maybe a difference between nowadays that it was before. I think that when you talk about America first, we believe that America first means the continent, not only the country.
The Americas first.
That's right. Yeah. And we are part of the Americas, and we can view that. If you see Rubio, how he's working closely with the continent, you can see that that's happening. And that's a big difference between what happened between now and what happened before. Rubio is really focused. He knows the continent. He knows our countries. He speaks the same language, though he speaks English perfectly, but he speaks Spanish also. He lived in a country, in Florida, in Miami, where it's a lot of Latins. So that's, I think, is a very important advantage for our continent. And we have to take advantage of that. That's how I view it. In respect to the particular situation of Peru, I think that we are in a very good moment with the United States, maybe an historic moment with the United States. And I would try to say why. Because nowadays, Peru is being located always where we are now, in the center of the South Pacific Ocean in Latin America. But nowadays, we are center of that geopolitical influence, geographic location in Peru. We're the center of the continent, that we have a good number of ports. Trade between South America and the world goes through Peru, mainly, in that continent. We also have minerals, lithium, copper, zinc, lead, and that's also very important nowadays. It's been important always, but we have somehow this new situation with the minerals is coming back with the situation with the transition energy, with the chips, and with technology. So we are trying to take advantage of that also. So if you look at Peru now, we are trying to change the agenda, not only related to narcotics, which is also an important issue, but moving that to investments, to minerals, to geographic location in South America. So, in fact, in the last 2 years, we have signed the Artemis agreement with the NASA. We have signed the critical minerals agreement with the United States. We have the Blue Dot Network. We just bought F-16 from the US. We received some Black Hawk helicopters. We are building a naval base in Peru with the Marines of US. So I think that we are beginning to see from this side, from the United States, that we are beginning to be important. We are being rediscovered. We were the center of the Inca Empire. We were the center of the Spanish Empire. And we think that we are now the center in the continent, and like geographically in South America. And that's being viewed by the United States in a different way than it was viewed before. So for sure, as ambassador of Peru, we are trying to take advantage of that, because it's our challenge to put this situation over the table so that the United States would really understand that Peru has a value, as all the other countries has, but I mean, the country has a value different. Panama Channel, Colombia is in the north part of the continent. Each country has its own values to that relationship. So we are trying to highlight those situations in this specific moment with the Trump administration, talking about America's first, not only America first.
Yes, I love that. We need to start using that more, America's first. And sir, exactly, as you so beautifully worded, you remind me of just the fact that all the three countries that you guys are representing here today are of such strategic value for the United States, not only because of the bilateral relationships that we have, but because you guys are so strategically placed, each of you in your own way. And Manuel, I wanted to go back to you because for Panama, of course, the Panama Canal is your country's absolutely most strategic asset that you have. And as the relationship continues to evolve and as supply chains continue to shift, I was hoping that you could share a little bit about what updates or what modernizations and upgrades and infrastructure changes are being made on the Panamanian side to maybe solidify or deepen the U.S.-Panama relationship going forward? Yes,
that is a great question, and in fact, these modernization projects are being undertaken by Panama Canal Authority, and they are all related to maintaining the route relevant, modern, and sustainable for the next 50, 60 years. In fact, they are related to water, energy, and the expansion of our port system. If you recall, back in 2023, there was a big drought worldwide, and the Panama Canal had to reduce its daily transits from 38, which is the magic number of daily transits, to 24. This definitely altered global shipments worldwide. Therefore, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers had done a study back in the early 2000s of creating a water reservoir called Rio Indio that will guarantee water not only during those periods of drought, dry season, but also for humans. In fact, half of the population of the country of Panama lives around the canal area. And 20% of all the water that is used in the canal basin is for humans. So we have to guarantee water for crossing ships and also water for drinking water. This is a $2 billion project. As I mentioned, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did the preliminary studies, and the Panama Canal Authority has always had a working relationship with the Corps, so there's a lot of American influence in this project. The second project is related to energy. Ambassador, you mentioned drill, baby, drill. Well, President Trump says drill, baby, drill a lot. In fact, the U.S. has become an energy exporting giant. And the export of LPG has increased dramatically in the past years. And 15% of transits through the Panama Canal are LPG tankers. That gas is being extracted in the Permian Basin in West Texas and going mainly to markets in Northeast Asia, Japan, and Korea as they transition away from nuclear energy. In fact, 10% of their cooking and heating gas is LPG. So that increase in supply from the U.S. and increase in demand has created a considerable increase in transit. So the idea is to build a pipeline that will transport LPG from the Atlantic to the Pacific side, thus freeing up about 3 to 5 transits a day. So we're not only conserving water, but also utilizing our resources in other areas that are more strategic to the commercial interests of the canal. And finally, our ports. Panama has as a system, has 5 separate ports, but from a commercial point of view, they are seen as one integral system. We manage about 10 million TEUs, which is the same as what the Port of Los Angeles manages. So Panama, a country of 4.5 million people, has the same port capacity as LA. We're gonna add 2 new ports, one in the Pacific, one in the Atlantic, that will increase our capacity to about 15 million TEUs. This is more than Hong Kong. Just to give you an idea of the port capacity that will be available. So 70% of all transits leave or arrive from a U.S. port, so having a strong logistics network creates an environment where the U.S. and Panama can continue to cooperate in commercial matters.
Thank you so much for that information, and thank you so much to all of you for sharing such an incredible wealth of information. And I don't think we often get the opportunity to be in a room with you and get to pick your brain, so I want to make sure that we leave enough time for audience Q&A. I'm sure a lot of people want to ask you guys questions, but I want to take a last opportunity to ask you all something, and I'm going to make it something interesting and fun because it's not often that we get to peek behind the curtain. And Ambassador Garcia Peña, we had a conversation the other night at the Mexican Embassy with your daughter where we talked about how people don't often ask this question in DC, but I would love to ask it to you just because I'm so curious. But if you weren't working as diplomats representing your country in the United States, what would you be doing? Give us a peek behind the curtain.
Oh, I'd be teaching at the university as I was before. I'm not a career diplomat. I'm a university professor, and that's what I would be doing. But I think that also is the reason why I'm sitting here now. My relationship with President Petro goes way back, and one of the topics we always talked about the United States. I was, as you mentioned in the introduction, I was brought up in the United States. I have a great admiration. I love this country. This country has been, my siblings are all American citizens, so I think that this academic work that I did in Colombia, which was quite interesting. Actually, I always tell the story. I worked at 2 universities at one moment. In the morning at Universidad Los Andes, was a private university. In the afternoon, Universidad Nacional was a public university. In the private university, everybody had the idea that the United States was like the ideal model that everybody wanted to live in. In the public university, the U.S. was the enemy, the imperialist. So it was the same class, but the 2 completely different that talk about the diversity of the United States, how the U.S. is not black and white. It's a wonderful history. So I think that academic preparation that I had, which is why when President Petro called me, and he goes, all those things you write about and these books you've published about the United States, now go to Washington and put them into action. So I think that actually I love to go back to the university, but I think that after being the ambassador here for the time that I have been, I have a lot more to think about and a lot more to analyze it, and hopefully a lot more to share with my students.
That's amazing, but we're glad you're here as ambassador. It's been a pleasure to overlap with you. Now you guys can choose who goes next.
Let's go
Maybe you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well,
The only thing I have to note is that I'm going to have to write a book because I'm the only one who hasn't written a book in this panel. So I have to catch up.
Well, what I did when I finished my time here in Washington, probably go back to my country, and I was working as a lawyer, a member of board of directors, also a good amount of work doing with my Congress and my executive because I work with some clients about that. Maybe if I wouldn't be here now, I would be coming to the States as a fan to the World Cup because I like soccer. I will be going to the weekends to see my home team in Lima. So I have a lot of things to do. But I really think that Washington is a wonderful experience. I've been in Washington before. I was a trade minister 20 years ago. I was in charge of the negotiation of the free trade agreement between Peru and the United States, which is the first trade agreement that Peru signed. We have 23 trade agreements now. That was the first one. So I was familiar with the way of living in Washington. I came here very often to negotiate with the USTR. and with the Department of Commerce at that point in time. So, and I think one of the reasons why the government asked me to come to Washington was because I have a previous experience in Washington, D.C. So now it's different because I'm living here, and I command this mission of Peru in Washington. I think this is very a good opportunity. It's been a very good, wonderful time for us, having the opportunity to be at the end of the one government, at the beginning of the new government, with such differences between both of them, having the chance to meet different views, having the chance to be able to put over the table the capabilities of Peru in this bilateral scenario. So I think that this would be an unforgettable experience. So I really recommend diplomats or people that are in the business sector to come to Washington, D.C. They have the chance to be ambassadors, of course. That's an experience that is it's difficult to replicate, and I believe that this is the city where you have to be if you want to be in politics, you want to be in the center of the power, because you see here more than 100 embassies, the White House is here, the Congress is here, the State Department is here, the Secretaries of State are all of them here. So yeah, I think this is a city that you cannot replicate anywhere else in the world.
And we're so glad to hear that you've enjoyed it here, and we are so pleased to have you here and to be able to work with you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm also a political appointee, not a career diplomat, so I'll go back to Panama, a country with a lot of opportunities, especially in my sector, which is technology. As you mentioned, I used to work for a telecommunications company for a decade. I also was very involved in Panama's Chamber of Commerce, which is a very nice intermediary between government and private enterprise, so it's good to be part of any trade association. It's something that I highly recommend. And if I can add something to the question, being in Washington has been delightful for me and my family. There are three things that I'm going to miss. The fact that my school is the building literally next door to where I live, my son's school, so I just walk like 100 feet and I'm there. I'm going to miss Rock Creek Park, beautiful place, and my social life. I always joke that I have a more active social life here than in Panama because there's something to do every single weekend, even with the very harsh winter that we had this year. So it's a city that has embraced me and my family, and really happy to be in Washington in this time or any other time. It's a great city.
Thank you all so much. And I want to save a few minutes to open it up to the audience. If anybody has any questions, we would love to hear from you.
Hey, I'm Steve Kennard, born in Texas, but proudly to a Panamanian mother. I wanted to ask you all, as it pertains to attracting foreign direct investment, often you can leverage special economic zones. I know this is the case in Panama, but I wanted to give you each a chance to talk about maybe some of the special economic zones that your country are using or developing to attract more of that foreign direct investment and create more opportunity.
Can I take that one? Yeah. Okay. Panama has two laws directed towards FDI, one enacted in 2004, the other in 2007. The one in 2004 is related to a special economic zone in an old Air Force base called Howard in the old Panama Canal zone called Panama Pacifico. There are 350 companies established under this regime. It gives some tax advantages, and there's also an agreement that you don't have to hire 90% of your workforce that has to be Panamanian. That's the law outside, so when you're in the special economic zone, you can bring in more talent from expats. The good thing about this special economic zone is that it has what is called a ventanilla única, so you have one place where you can do all of your government exchanges or stuff that you have to do with the government in just one place. So you don't have to go to the city and go to different ministries or secretaries. So it's really efficient in terms of how you're dealing with the central government. The other regime is our multinational regime, enacted in 2007. 20% of the companies under this regime are from the U.S. Procter & Gamble, 3M, Caterpillar, Hewlett-Packard. The list is very big. As I mentioned, that allowance that you don't need to hire local talent, at the beginning, they start bringing a lot of expats, 90%. but the knowledge transfer is there. So they start transferring what they know and the best practices of multinational companies to the local talent, and they end up sending those expats somewhere else, and and locals, Panamanians, end up getting training from very well-respected companies, and that is a spillover effect of the best practices of well-known companies throughout the world. So those two regimes have definitely changed the country in the past decades, Panama Pacifico and our multinational regime.
Please, yes.
Yeah, well, in the case of Peru, I can say that we have 4 strategic sectors. One of them is mining. We have a lot of mining companies in Peru. In fact, we have 2 of the most important American companies in Peru, which is Freeport and Newmont. They have very good mines there. We are one of the main exporters in the world of mine. And number 2 of copper, number 3 of copper. We have silver, we have gold, we have zinc, we have lithium. So, I mean, that's a very, very important sector. I would say the main sector in Peru is mining. The second sector, which is has opened or grows thanks to the trade agreement we have signed, it's agro-industry. We have a lot of avocado, we have the asparagus, we have blueberries. So that's a very important sector, new sector, because before the trade agreement in the year 2006, there was little exports of agro-industry. Now it's very important. In fact, we've surpassed Chile, which was the main export country in the region. Now Peru exports more agro-industry than Chile, for example. That was like our mirror, no? The third sector is fisheries. We are the #1 fish meal exporter in the world. So we have a big ocean, very rich ocean in the Pacific that allows us to have some important fishery industry. And the fourth one is the tourism. We have Machu Picchu, which is one of the main world attractions in the world. And we are adding to Machu Picchu now one of our I call it the new ambassador for Peru, which is gastronomy. Gastronomy beginning to be very famous in Peru. There's a lot of people going to Peru to try our food. There's Peruvian restaurants all over the world, but very good restaurants. But of course, if you go to Peru, you would have a live living experience in Peru with this situation. So these 4 sectors are, I think, very, very important sectors. And the last thing is that, talking about investment opportunities in Peru, I think that another area where we need investment is in infrastructure. We have a big deficit in infrastructure that can be covered by investment from the U.S., like Bechtel, other companies that are in Peru. So I think that it's a very interesting country for investment. We see a lot of more interest. Chevron is going to Peru. We have 2 American ports in Peru, Matarani and Salaverry. We have these mining companies that I mentioned. So I think that, as I mentioned before in this meeting, is that we're trying to recap on whatever we have so that we receive more American investment in Peru. Of course, there's not only American investment. We have investment all over the world. So that's why we believe that if the United States wants to take a step forward, they have to look further and not only wait and see. I mean, sometimes you have to see and go, because if you wait too much, some other country is going to put their hands on the country. So.
I'm definitely one of those people that have gone to Peru just to eat, and I recommend it to all of you.
Me too.
Chifa, yes.
Anything
That's
to
the
add,
Chinese
Ambassador?
Peruvian food. Yeah, sí, claro.
Well, you know, that's a great question because actually U.S. direct investment last year in Colombia reached a record level. Each year, we hope this year to break last year's record. We continue to grow. It has with several things. First of all, the American companies always say that in Colombia there's a reliable macroeconomic handling, regardless of who the government is, left or right. We continue to maintain fiscal responsibility and no surprises, guarantees for investors. Similar to what Alfredo was saying about Peru, we have specific areas that we are fomenting. One has to do with energy and infrastructure, what we call a country platform, which is in our development plan that has specific attractions for the mining area, energy transition, and infrastructure in railways and electric vehicles, where without a doubt, American companies are not only welcome, but they have really stepped up. But I agree 100% with Ambassador Ferrero about how the world is also looking. I'm asked a question: why are the Chinese building the subway in Bogota? And the simple answer is because there was no American company that showed up. So I think that has a lot to do with it. We would like to do much more with Americans, but I think that's part of what's growing. We have the fastest sector of the economy is our tourism. We are, last year had 1.5 million American tourists visit Colombia. We want that record to be broken again this year. And Colombia has we don't have Machu Picchu, that's true.
Yeah, you have Cartagena.
Yeah, but we have diversity. We have the Cartagena for those that like the coast. We have the Pacific coast. We have the Andes Mountains. We have the Amazon. And there's tourism for all tastes. We have people like the high-end, nice resorts, 5-star hotels, and we all like the backpackers that go into the Amazon. So it's really amazing how this has been growing, this sector, and specific areas that we're really proud of. The audiovisual sector, which is we have a law that we have tax credits where 35% of the expenses that are incurred, you get a tax rebate, and that has with Paramount, with Netflix, we had the biggest audiovisual production ever in South America was 100 Years of Solitude that I recommend you all to see on Netflix. The Garcia Marquez, which was fabulous. 100,000 employments were generated throughout the country because everything that you see on the screen was made in Colombia. It was Colombia, the actors, the directors, the what do you call it, the costumes. It was all created in Colombia. So that's, for us, is a huge asset. I was just in Los Angeles talking to some of these companies on how they're experiencing Colombia because we have the great variety of landscapes, whether you want the coast, or you want the mountains, or you want the jungles. So that is a really fascinating area. And I always say that the biggest asset we have a lot of wealth, gold and minerals, but the biggest asset is our people. We have a very well-educated, talented people that many companies have come to understand, and because of our location, Colombia is more and more, Bogota in particular, because of the connection. We don't have the connections that you guys have, but we can go to Bogota through Copa anyway. So but many companies have set up shop in Colombia, not only for Colombia, the Colombian market, but for South Americans, the gateway to South America. So we are proud, and I think that's something that we share with our neighbors. We don't see this as a competition. Who's first? And if Colombia is going to, but Peru. No, I think that the region. We have so much to share as a region, and we're so proud. And when I hear our neighbors in the different countries proudly talk about what they're doing, I think that makes us all beneficial. So we're really proud to be living in a moment where Latin America is, without a doubt, at a high priority. In fact, when we had the meeting with our two presidents, President Trump gave the President Petro, and then to all of us gave us a cap, the Make America Great Again, and signed the caps for us. And then President Petro asked President Trump, "Hey, can I borrow your marker for a moment?" And on the cap put an S at the end of America, so it says "Make America's Great Again." And President Trump thought it was good. I like that. That's very good. In fact, they took a picture of President Petro with a "Make America's Great Again," and I think that's true. I think this is not a the diplomacy and international relationships have come to understand that the better we are in the hemisphere, the better we are able to complement each other, because we produce things that you guys don't produce, and you guys produce things that we don't produce, and so some folks tend to think that trade is zero sum. No, it's a win-win, and just an example, Colombian coffee. We always love you guys to drink Colombian coffee. For every dollar of Colombian or Brazilian or any coffee from any part of the world that is purchased, $30 are produced here in this country. There's the coffee industry is actually in the United States. The lattes, the stirs, the cups, the kids that serve it at Starbucks, those are generated here in the United States. So it's not, so again, we obviously want you guys to buy Colombian coffee beans, of course, the best in the world, but we are also very proud that this generates employment and generates prosperity in this country. So I think that we are at a very exciting moment in Latin America, and we're very excited to understand that with the United States, despite the differences we're always going to have, because that's the way things go. In fact, I remember I always quote my friend here when at one moment your president, well, one of your past presidents, because you've had a lot of presidents recently, but one of them had a dispute with my president. Yes. He said, and I always quote this, he goes, "Our presidents can fight all they want, but me and you are going to be friends." And so, and that's the attitude we've had here. And I understand, and I remember actually on the day of the inauguration, Jose Miguel Alemán, the Panamanian ambassador, was actually sitting right next to me when President Trump talked about taking back the Panama Canal. He almost fell out of his seat when he's
very patriotic.
We talked about that, but you know, I think that has in fact brought us together. President Petro and President Molinos are on opposite sides of the political spectrum, but the first call I believe that President Molinos received was from President Petro. He goes, "Hey, we're with you. Panama Canal is Panamanian," which is important for a Colombian to say, you know, because we have a history with that. In fact, there was a comedian in Colombia that said, you know, it's okay that the U.S. takes the Panama Canal from Panama so they can give it back to us. But well, that was just a little bit of humor. But I think that this is a moment where Latin America, despite the differences that we're always going to have with the governments on the right or the left or whatever, we've come to understand that we're in the same neighborhood, that our security depends on the relationship with the United States, that we are unable in Colombia to deal, and I think this is true for any country in the hemisphere, to deal with our security challenges, with so many challenges that we have without the United States. So I think that this is a very exciting moment to be part in. Let's make the Americas great again.
Ambassador, that was so incredibly well put, and I'll just say something really quickly. The Canadian ambassador said this morning in his opening keynote, but he made the point that America first is important, but what it really means is it doesn't mean America alone. And that's exactly what you just said, that we can all be stronger together, and as the U.S., it is in our best interest to have strong, free, prosperous, stable neighbors. So absolutely make the Americas great again. And I think we have time for just maybe one more question.
Good afternoon, ambassadors. Thank you so much for joining today, this fabulous conference. And thank you, Melissa, for organizing everything today as well with Josh. As you know, this conference is about the protection of the Western Hemisphere, and I'm sure you heard Joshua Trevino, his speech during lunch, accentuating and focusing specifically on the importance of the Monroe Doctrine and the Roosevelt Corollary. So my question to you is the following: what measures are your countries individually taking to control the influence of foreign adverse forces, for instance, the Iranian proxy Hezbollah, the presence of Russian Wagner forces in your country, and especially foreign investment directly from China, which is not only depleting the oceans in South America with illegal fishing, and I'm sure Peru knows this and other countries, the number of illegal Chinese vessels that are depleting the South American oceans is really alarming. So my question to you, what measures are actively taking your countries to stop this adverse foreign influence, including Iranian, Chinese, and Russian? Thank you.
Can I begin? Okay. What can I mention? This is a very important question for the continent and also for Peru. What I can say that Peru is part of the Shield of the Americas, which is this new movement related to trying to take over, to control the illegal immigration, transnational crime, and these other things that affect us also as a continent. Not only it affects the United States, it affects our country. We do believe that one way to combat this situation about the Chinese and other things that worry the United States is having more American presence in the continent. Okay? We need the United States to be back. If you view the history, if you can see sincerely, many points in time, the United States was looking at other places, other parts of the world. Okay, the Arabs, okay, Europe, or okay, Asia, but not necessarily Latin America. I do believe that this administration is looking carefully to our continent, and that's a way to begin. You want to be strong? You be strong with your neighbors, not alone. Once you're strong with your neighbors, you have strong neighbors, one whole community of values, one direction, and you have like a group of countries that will be like working together with you. So I do believe that this is a new measure by the Trump administration. How can we get America together with focus, with ideals, with projections, with investment, with international crime organizations being controlled? And the way to do it is looking at your continent first. And that's something that I can say that is happening with Trump. And I think that that's a way to do it. What happens after that? How much investment we're going to receive? How much cooperation we're going to have? That's part of the process. But to begin with, you have to establish new objectives with the continent. And you have this national security document that mentions that our country is going to be a priority for the United States. So that's a very good beginning. And we do believe that this is something that you have to be here to stay, not just a moment of one administration, because otherwise we'll be going back and forth. We need American investment. You worry about Chinese, but as the ambassador of Colombia mentioned, you talk about Chancay Port. You heard about Chancay Port? They say it's a Chinese port. Well, really, it's Chinese 60%, 40% is not Chinese. But that port was offered to the United States before the Chinese arrived to Peru. That port was 10 years later. A company was looking for investment for this port when it was not Chinese investment. They went to San Diego, they went to Chile, they went to Singapore. After 10 years, the Chinese raised a hand. Okay, private sector, what are they going to do? They're going to say, let's wait to see if the United States wants the port, or they're going to sell the port to whoever comes. So that's why I do believe that you need a different strategy for South America, for Latin America, for the Americas, so that you can be able to, in the field, be able to put your foot and then see how can we work together with the continent. Not only claiming that the Chinese are here or there. I mean, you have to do something for that, because we are Latin countries. We need investments, and of course, in our situation, we need to have more American presence, and that's a claim that has been there for decades.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We're almost out of time, but please go ahead,
Just
sir.
simply, I agree 100% with you, and I would just add two other ideas. One has to do with, which is I know a controversial issue here in this country, but has to do with access to the U.S. market for what we produce in our countries. And we know that trade is a question we deal with, and in fact, today, 65% of exports from Colombia to the United States have zero tariffs because of the work we've been doing, working with USTR back and forth. The U.S. is by far our #1 trading partner, both in the exports. More than a third of our exports come to the United States. More than a third of things we import from abroad come from the United States. But it has a lot to do with access. And then Jose Felix Lafourré, that is the head of our cattle ranchers union, put it very clearly. He goes, we want to sell meat to the United States, but we haven't been able to get them to accept. But the Chinese are willing to buy our meat, so we'll sell the meat to the Chinese, to Ambassador Ferrero's point. So I think that the realities of the world, and let's face it, the United States, your second trading partner is China. So we have to, it's not, but we have a red line, and to your question, the Chinese and the Russians have offered the Colombian military hardware, military assistance, and we have clearly said no. We have a tradition, we have a history, so we have red lines in which we know we don't want the Chinese, we don't want the Russians, but in a very diverse world. And I don't, you will understand that I want to be very diplomatic about this, but if the U.S. Is seen as closing the possibilities of access, well, then we're going to be investing and looking elsewhere. And I think that's part of this new reality where we have to look at how, in fact, we attract American in more investment. We have more possibilities of business, but at the same time, understand that we have to diversify and increase our trade throughout the world. So I think those are the challenges that we have facing. And in fact, I think that what we have shown is that when American companies go into Colombia and see what's going on, that our best ambassadors, I try to do a good job here, but our best ambassadors here are American companies that operate in Colombia, which I'm sure is the same in Peru and Panama. You know, these companies that go to your countries, our countries, they come back here and say, hey, look, we need, and it's been so important, you know, that when you ask about the tensions we had back in the day, so important. Congressmen in this country who have companies in their states that operate in Colombia. Now, I'll mention one of them that's become one of my closest friends, if you want, is Senator Tuberville of Alabama, who openly says, look, Drummond, the company that I work in Alabama, works in Colombia, has been in Colombia. And he went to President Trump, in fact, went to the Super Bowl with President Trump. And he said, you know, I talked to President Trump about how important Colombia is. So the private sector plays such a huge role in attracting and sending the message that it's good to invest in Colombia or in Peru and Panama and any of our other countries. So I think that this is also a warning, and I agree 100% with Ambassador Ferrero, how the opportunity for the U.S. is so huge in this moment.
Well, thank you all so much for being here today. We know you have a very busy agenda here in DC, but it's been amazing to get a look behind the scenes, also to get to see your friendship and collegiality with each other. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and help me in thanking our amazing ambassadors.